I'm going to start talking and teaching now. So guys, welcome. It's 5:59. Always start about a minute early because I can't wait to start. I get so excited. Welcome, guys. I can see some of you whose camera is on. Hey, Josie. Hey, Jen. How are you guys? Welcome. So I've hit the record button, and I'm going to go through how this class is going to work in a few minutes. But thank you so much for showing up, and thank you so much for showing up live. I know a lot of you, and I don't know a lot of you, so that's pretty cool. I know some of you guys are from different time zones, so that's super cool. If you've never used the Zoom format, you can see me up here, and then a bunch of you guys have your cameras off. Some of you have it on. When at certain times during the class tonight, I'll be taking like mini breaks, and if you guys have questions and you've got your camera on, you can just put your hand up like that, and I can unmute you to get the question. Or there's actually a button you can press that lets me see your hand up. Or you can type into the chat box. So 3 or 4 or 5 times during the class today, I'll be taking kind of mini breaks for questions, checking in, see how you guys are, because this is a different topic than I normally teach. I know a lot of you guys, and some of you are brand new to me. Mark is saying hi to everybody. So that's the chat box if you haven't figured it out. And what happens during the class, if you want to type in something into the chat box, I can read it. And you can even type in stuff that's private to just me. So if you don't want anyone else to see it, you can do that too. And for those of you who just hopped on, I will be putting on like a slide presentation as I'm teaching, because I'm teaching a different topic than I normally teach. For those of you who haven't come to my classes before, I teach a lot of healing classes, intuitive classes, metaphysical classes, energy classes. And then literally about a few weeks ago, maybe a month or 2 ago, I got the hit, as I call it, or the guidance to teach about quantum physics and neuroplasticity. And I was like, oh, okay, because that's like quite sciencey compared to what I normally teach, obviously. But it's exciting. It's stuff that I'm used to teaching. It's not that much different in the way of, like, this material, for those of you who have attended my classes before, this material is like the science behind the teaching that I do. So I'm going to be teaching both the science stuff as well as jumping into a bit of the metaphysical stuff and the energy stuff kind of near the end. But we're going to start with the science stuff. Before I kind of put on the video slide presentation and teach using that, a couple things I want to say to you guys. So I am going to be reusing this recording for a podcast. Now, podcast will only be audio, so your visual will not be there. But if you want to be heard and want to ask a question out loud, just keeping that in mind in case, you know, you're kind of, if you're like one of these sensitive people who doesn't like your voice on a podcast, in case somebody recognizes it, just so you know, most of you are probably fine with it, but I just want to kind of open disclosure so you know. And I also put these free events that I do on YouTube. So just FYI, I will be reusing it, but just the audio section will go on there, not the visual section. On YouTube, I might put the video, but mostly for the slides so people can see them. What else? How the class is set up, like I said, I'm gonna put the screen on the PowerPoint in a few minutes here. But during the PowerPoint, I'm going to take about 3 or 4 breaks and come back to you guys. So when I'm putting on the PowerPoint, I can't actually see you guys because the way the computer's set up. You guys will be able to see the PowerPoint, but I can't see you. So if you're putting up your hand and have a question, let me finish what I'm teaching, and then I'll take 3 or 4 breaks during the PowerPoint to take in questions. Does that sound cool? Any questions about that before we start? We're good? Okay, perfect. Before we start, I'm getting guidance to ask you guys this question. It's really interesting. I don't ever ask these questions. So I know you know the topic is neuroplasticity, quantum physics towards healing, but I'm getting the guidance to ask you, does somebody want something more specific? Is there something specific that's going on in your life that you want some help with as to why you signed up for this? And if anyone's got that, put your hand up or type it in. I'm not sure why I'm asking that. I know I talked to Mark earlier, what's going on for him, but when you signed up for this, is there something very, very, very specific you're looking for, or are you good with kind of rolling with things as they go? So I just want to check in before I start. All right, good. So let us begin. Okay, great. Victoria writes in post-consent. Okay, perfect. That's easy. That's easy, Victoria. Victoria, Mark, do you mind if I share what you're going through? Yes? Yes. Okay, cool. So Mark, about 4 months ago, had a stroke. And so if you can see his camera, Mark's the one up in the middle, and how it applies to overcome stroke. So we'll talk about that too. So post-concussion, stroke, anything else that you guys have on your own personal agenda, so I make sure that we kind of address it. I'll just give you guys a second. Working with dynamic retraining system to heal limbic from Lyme. Well, that's a good one, Betty. Okay, healing my liver, asthma. Oh, you guys are good. Okay, so those of you guys who type something in, my fibromyalgia and hormones. Okay, awesome. My fibromyalgia, that's from Crystal. Hormones from Amen. Okay, all right, got it, guys. So during the class, and there will be time at the end, if I forget, if I go too much into my right brain, I might forget. So I will kind of return to these questions in case I forget. So if I forget, just type it in and remind me. Cool, awesome. So, and everything you guys talked about will be discussed today. Strengthening the immune system. Oh, that's easy. I'm joking, Madeline. It's easy, but yeah, that's easy. Okay, cool, awesome. All right, let me get started here. Thyroid and adrenals. Perfect, Barb. Okay, I just make sure there's nothing else. Okay, so in a second, I'm gonna share my screen to my PowerPoint, I think. I'm not as techie as I pretend I am. 1 second. Okay, let's share the screen. PowerPoint, there we go. SharePoint. Okay, great, let's get the slideshow started. From beginning. Awesome, guys, welcome. Welcome, guys. Oh, there we go. Okay, so as I talked about, we're gonna be talking about neuroplasticity, quantum physics for healing. So that is the topic for today. So overview of today's call. First off, thank you for joining me. When you feel a call to attend something like this, there's a poll. Whether you're attending live or watching the recording makes no difference, because the people who will watch the recording now or in the future, their energy is with us. So thank you for listening to the call, for showing up, and I'm excited you're here. Today we're going to cover 3 main science areas. First is quantum physics. Second is neuroplasticity, and third is the amygdala, anxiety, and trauma. Now, I am going to, if you didn't hear me earlier, I am going to be using this for a podcast later without your video, so just keeping that in mind when you're asking questions in case you don't want your voice to be heard, just FYI. Full disclosure, got it? All right, and so during the class today, in between the 3 topics, I will take breaks and return to you guys and check in, okay? So first one we're talking about is quantum physics. So if you're aware of it or not, we have the current medical model of what we see in medicine right now is largely based on the theories of Newton, or the Newtonian theory. The current model of medicine is based on many principles, but primarily the principle that we base most of Western medicine on is what you see is what you got. The physical body just is, and that is the way it is, period. And a lot of these are from Newton's laws, and a lot of medicine, as Western medicine as we know it today, is based on this Newtonian theory. The current or old theory is basically that the human body is a survival machine, and it's largely powered by chemicals, by hormones, by genetic codings. That's what we currently believe in the medical model as it is now. The brain, that we think of in our head as that organ, is a very discrete organ, and it's the only place of consciousness, and it's the place where chemistry originates, and that's where we communicate with cells and coding of DNA. And in the current theory of medicine, and I'm going to say it many times, the current theory of medicine, man is essentially isolated from the world, and the mind is isolated from the body. That's the current theory. And that's why when you go in to see a physician, we tend to, whatever you want to call it, we tend to ask you questions more about, so what's happening, you know, did you ride the bike too long? Did you pick up your purse too much? What did you do? As opposed to, we don't ask a lot of questions in medicine about your emotional realm, because we think in the medical model that the brain is putting out chemicals in the body, and it's because the body is isolated from others. That's what the current medical model is based on. And in the current medical model, the brain is controlling everything. Everything, from the chemistry to the DNA to the genetics, everything is controlled by the brain. And in the current medical model, we're separate. So in the current medical model, what I experienced with my husband after class, or what I experienced with my son tonight, has nothing to do, I'm going to say it 3 times, nothing to do with what happens to my body. That's the current medical model, is based that we are separate individual organisms walking around the world, separate, and nothing affects us. Because we are separate machines, we do not account, again in the current model, that we have energy fields or stresses or emotions. We are essentially independent and auto-functioning outside of each other. In the current model, this perspective provides us that we are in separated worlds, and therefore we are isolated and self-contained. Everything in the human body, in the current model, is thought of as just a machine. So that's why we have a liver doctor, a bone doctor, a knee doctor, a toe doctor, an eye doctor, a retina doctor, but everything is separate because it essentially is a machine. That's how the model right now is based. Now the separation, the world of Newton and Descartes was composed of many separate objects that behaved in predictable ways. As humans, we are separate from the rest of the world, sitting outside the universe and just looking in. I know I'm repeating myself, but I really want you to understand that in the current model, we are just independently functioning outside of everything else, which is why the whole idea of stress causing illness is so hard for so many people to gather, because this is the model that our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents grew up with. So these are the theories that resonate with it. Western medicine, as we know it today, is based on looking into the body on its own and seeing itself as the body by itself without any care of what's going on outside. Their environment, our relationships, our diet, our stress levels, none of that is thought to impact the body because the body is a machine in the model that we have right now. So if the body is a machine, that's what it looks like. Everything to just operate like a robot. And that's essentially, and you guys who know me and those who don't know me, I'll tell you this right now. I don't knock anything in the world, so I'm not going to say medications are bad or pharmaceuticals are bad because I don't want you to think I think that, because I don't think that. I think they play a very valuable role. But because of the theory that the body is machine, that is where pharmaceuticals come in, because then we just tweak that, we tweak that, we tweak that, because these external chemicals will fix the body because it literally is just a machine. Again, that's the current model. There were 3 concepts that are integral to quantum physics, to understanding how its relationship to healing that we're going to talk about today. The first one is quantum leaps, the second one is entanglement, and the third one is zero-point field. Guys, I tried to keep this simple, so if stuff is going over your head, don't worry about it. It's going to make sense as I pull it together. Trust me, it'll make sense. Because guys, if I get it, you guys will get it. So about 100 years ago, that's when people started to study this. Like, really, is this really what medicine is based on? Is this really what the world is just this Newtonian law? So Niels Bohr at the time decided to look at the atom and decided to look at light, like prisms of light. And he looked at the atom and he discovered that the atom, as most of us remember from grade 11 science, the electrons spin around the central proton-neutron thing, and the electrons spin around it, right? You guys remember that from grade 9 science? But what he also discovered is that just like the planet solar system, the thing that Bohr discovered was the most interesting thing, is that electrons can leap between one orbit to another. So I'm going to show you a picture here. Oops, that's not the picture. The picture will be there in a second. So when an atom is heated up, the electrons can actually leap between these orbits. And a downward leap means energy is coming out as light, and that explains why specific light is formed. Now that emission from that jumping between of the electrons, that is called quantum leaps. Here's the picture. So what he discovered, see that little red line at the bottom there? He discovered that the electrons could actually jump from one orbit to another, and then a photon is emitted. So therefore, things aren't fixated. That was what he showed us. And that is what he called a quantum leap. And then the next theory we're going to talk about is entanglement. And guys, like I said, this is all going to make sense if you give me about 10 or 15 minutes. Entanglement was discovered by Einstein. And what he discovered was that when you bring 2 particles together, they become entangled, like they're close together, and their properties actually become linked. And if you separate those particles and put them on opposite sides of the world, no matter how far apart they get, they are still entangled. Isn't that cool? So what that means in our human realm is that those of us who interact with each other, we are always part of, again, now I'm going to jump a teeny bit into the metaphysics. You know, so what that they discovered that in science, what that means in the real world is that each of us who have ever come in contact, we are always going to be in contact, because in some level, entanglement of our properties has occurred, because we're always going to be linked. What that means is maybe we aren't actually separate. These findings have changed the foundation of physics. Matter can no longer be considered separate, and subatomic particles have no purpose in isolation, but could only be understood through their relationship with each other. Because if entanglement is occurring and we're always being affected by something we ran into before, then we can't think of ourselves as separate anymore. We have to be interconnected. And that's where the next piece of quantum physics comes in, called the 0-point field. The 0-point field, this is, in my mind, the coolest thing. The 0-point field is basically this, that there is an ocean of microscopic vibrations that we cannot see on the physical realm. So I like to think of it like a dark space, like black space, where you can't see what's happening. And that's microscopic vibrations where you can't actually see it, that occurs in the space between things. So there's me and there's my computer. There's space between that, right? There's microscopic vibrations in that space. 0-point field is basically our universe, which seems to be full of this dark, empty space, is in fact the state of energy dance where subatomic particles keep popping in and out of existence. Let me say that in a different way. This dark, empty space that exists between this physical, in quantum physics that they have discovered, that is where physical emerges. That is where things pop out, is from the dark, empty space of essentially what humans think of as nothingness. That's where subatomic particles come together and pop up. I think that's so cool. So this is a picture of 0-point field. The whole idea is that our consciousness, see all this grid work around this person's head, that is where everything starts as subatomic particles that you can't see, that if given time will pop and pop and pop into the physical. So the quantum field, we are literally surrounded and part of this sea of energy, one big quantum field. They talk a lot about this in a bunch of those movies that have come out. Everything is connected to everything like an invisible web. Einstein himself said the field is the sole governing agency of the particle, and the field is our only reality. So again, if I extend this to metaphysics, that which is physical is actually old. The only place to find new things is in this quantum field, which we perceive nothing is, and that sea of energy is where things start to bloom. That's where the reality is. So just to summarize, in the old model, the view of the body is a machine. It's controlled through DNA, chemical reactions, and so on. The brain is central to it. And the old model has no accountability for the millions of transmissions that occur through the body. And again, in the old model, the body is decentralized, okay? The consciousness does not reside only in the brain, but also through the body, and it does not explain how cells talk to each other. So that's the old model. The field theory, and the field theory is needed to account for the amazing coordination that's occurring. So we all know that cells talk to each other, but again, in the old model, that's not shown at all. All of our thought process, all of our feelings, everything is in the information on the quantum level. And the body is simply an energy field. So every part of our body talks to each other. Our liver talks to our heart talks to our nose talks to our toes. Everything in the body is connected. The newer thinking on the body is basically that there are webs of light within our body, and each organ actually emits a light. And the light system provides a control above and beyond the molecular system that we were taught in school. And the heart is the center of all of these light systems. So I want to say that again. The light system that's emitted by the organs is actually the most important thing. And it plays much more control in the molecular level of what's happening. And the heart is actually the center of this orchestration. So a lot of the stuff I'm taking from Lynn McTaggart's work, if you guys don't know her stuff. And she quotes by saying, the field, quantum field is the force rather than germs or genes that determines whether we are healthy or sick. The force which must be tapped in order to heal. And that's what we're talking about, this quantum field, the force. And you guys are going to see it more when we talk about neuroplasticity and when we talk about amygdala. So again, just to remind, we already talked about the old, so I'm not going to actually review this, but this is the old view, just to remind you, mechanistic. The human body is survival. It's controlled by chemicals, genetic coding. We are separate. That's the old theory. The new theory is basically communication occurs in the subatomic world. Cells and DNA communicate through frequencies. The brain actually perceives and makes a record of everything that's pulsating. We are not separate. We are not individuals living in isolated entities. In fact, we are actually together. The consciousness of human beings are incredible, and we can heal ourselves and heal the world. And this is essentially the quantum view and the quantum leaps that we're looking for in the new revolution of medicine. So let me take a break from here and pause the share and come back to you guys. So that's like a really brief overview. Sorry, just give me one sec. Stop share. Okay, let's just see here. Let me go back to you guys. Okay, hi guys again. Okay, so I know I moved through that in 20 minutes. That was pretty good because I've got 2 other areas I want to do, neuroplasticity and amygdala stuff. But I know that was a lot, but I moved through it pretty quickly. But the recording is always there. But before I go on, does anyone have questions about that? Like, how does that feel? Does that feel good to you guys? And if there's questions, just put your hand like that or type it in. Did I lose you guys? No? You're good, Crystal? Okay. Amin, you're good? Awesome. Lorraine, you're good? Mark, we're good? Okay, good. Just making sure. So we're all good. Okay, Harmon, we're good? Awesome. Very interesting. I know, it's super cool. The quantum field, like this invisible thing that they talk about, to me, coolest thing ever. There is this vibration that's all around us. That's where oh, you've read McTaggart's work. Awesome. So that's where everything originates from. And when you work with metaphysics and energy work, that's what we talk about all the time, right? So this is the science behind it. All right, let's keep going because I know Mark and a bunch of you want to talk about neuroplasticity. So let me go back to sharing the screen. And I'll stop again, guys. If you haven't noticed already, I'll stop again after the next section. So let's go here. Okay, one second, guys. Share screen, technology. Okay, there we go. Here we go. Okay, so HeartMath. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on HeartMath, but if you've studied some HeartMath stuff, you can Google it. HeartMath is an institution that's in the States. They have tons of science and data to show so much. Basically, what they've shown us is that positive emotions create a stronger immune system. So the person who typed in about increasing their immune system, that's actually the science, is if we have positive emotions, we have a stronger immune system. And HeartMath also shows us that we each have an electromagnetic field that is very measurable. HeartMath also shows us that there's a direct link between our consciousness, our thoughts, and our heart, and how all of it works together. So you can buy little HeartMath apps, you can buy devices, all kinds of stuff off their website, and you can kind of become a HeartMath practitioner. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on HeartMath, but that's HeartMath. Oh shoot, I got to figure out how to get the thing started. Give me a sec, guys. I got to figure out how to get my thing it's not going. 1 second. Oh, there, I just did that. Okay, it's all good. So neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is basically this. The neuroplasticity is derived from the words neuron, which means nerves, are plastic. That's where it's derived from. And what essentially it means is that a nerve can change itself. Our nerve cells in our brain are changeable, malleable, and modifiable. And the question is, do we actually believe that's possible? And if we believe it, then everything changes. We can reprogram ourselves. We can change our reality. We can grow, we expand, we can heal. Anything is possible. And if everything changes, then what? Then what? Because in the past, we were taught that nerves, that we could not. There wasn't regrowth. But the newer thinking in neuroplasticity shows us completely otherwise, that if something dies, it can shift back. So neuroplasticity is very cool. There's 2 main parts, and Mark, I think you probably know this. There's 2 main types, structural and functional. Structural neuroplasticity is basically the brain can change its structure based on new thoughts, new focus, new consciousness. So if you've never, ever, been really an emotional person, and so your limbic system is a little bit off, you can actually change the structure of your brain based on thoughts, focus, and consciousness. Functional is essentially what Mark wants to hear about, is that the brain can move areas from previous areas that were previously functioning that may not be working anymore to a new area so that a different part of your brain can take over and perform the same function. My mom had a stroke about 6 months ago, and if you look at her MRI scan, the part of her brain that moves her right leg and right arm should not be functioning. But what's happened is functional neuroplasticity has happened, and we hear about it all the time. And even though the MRI shows that part of her brain completely gone, functional neuroplasticity is kicked in. So she's walking, she moves her arms, she cooks like she always cooked, So with functional neuroplasticity, it takes us believing, and we'll talk about some of the application in a second, that it's possible. And both types functional and structural, are available throughout our lifetime. As most of you know, I've been a physician for 20-something years, and 20-something years ago, when somebody had a stroke like she did, it was just thought, you'll never walk again, and you'll never move your arm again. But times are changing, things are changing, and there's a belief that, well, maybe you will walk again. Maybe you will move your arm again. So that's functional neuroplasticity. Let's talk about synapses. This is very, very cool. When a nerve connects to another nerve, if you don't remember this from grade 11 science, that's called a synapse. So when a nerve connects to another nerve, that's called a synapse, and conduction is passed along. At birth, we have about 2,500 synapses per every neuron, okay? For every neuron, we have 2,500 synapses at birth. Our brain does the biggest development in our younger years, and at age 3, we have 15,000 synapses per neuron. The average adult has about half of that. And why is that? It's because we've stopped paying attention. The next slide shows why. Oh, so this is a synapse, like one nerve cell connecting to another. That's called the synaptic junction, grade 11 science again. So why do we lose that? Because if we don't use it, we're going to lose it. As we age, if we don't use what we've got, we're going to lose it. And as we get older, the ones that we use all the time get stronger, and the other ones, the ones that we don't use, actually get pruned away. And it's called synaptic pruning because we're not using them. And the next picture shows synaptic pruning. So synaptic pruning is basically that scissors go to where, essentially like scissors, to cut off the synaptic junctions. So I put this picture in here on purpose because when I was preparing these slides a few weeks ago, or a few days ago, whenever it was, I was thinking in my head, you know, what did I do when I was a kid, when I had, whatever it said, 25,000 synapses that I don't do as an adult anymore? And so I just asked. And I went out driving that day, and of course, I saw a kid that age, about 3 or 4 years old, smelling daffodils. And I thought, right, so if I don't sell those daffodils, that pruning of that synapse is going to happen. I know that sounds silly, but have you ever watched 3 and 4-year-olds? They're interested in everything, from the grass to the tail of the dog, to the person who crossed the road, to your hair clip, to your glasses. So the interest in those things keep those synapses going. When you forgot to, in this example, smell the roses, guess what's going to happen? You're going to prune those synapses. So in a second, we're going to go to amygdala and trauma stuff, and I'm going to check in with you guys. I am going to answer specific questions about this at the end, but I want to check in with you guys how you are. Let me just stop the share. Okay. How are you guys? How are you? Are we good? Okay. Any questions, or how are you guys feeling? That was pretty straightforward, right? The neuroplasticity was straightforward? Okay. Any questions before I keep going, or how are you doing? I assume good. I just want to keep checking in so that there's not a whole bunch at the end. Still very cool. I know, it's super cool, isn't it? I know, it's cool. And what's really cool, Barb, when you guys get to the end is, and those of you who studied me for a long time, like Aman and a bunch of you guys, Marianne, Crystal, everything I teach, I know meditation promotes, and we're going to get to the end. That'll come at the end. But everything we teach is based on the science. So let's go back to the science. Good? Okay. Let's go back to the science. Share screen. Okay, back to this. Sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. Share screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, so amygdala. So I'll show you a picture in a few minutes, but a lot of you guys know the amygdala is a very small organ, about the size of an almond, that's located in about your midbrain. The job of the amygdala is one thing only, and that is to protect us. The amygdala holds memories, and it stimulates what's called the sympathetic nervous system, or our fight or flight. The amygdala, this is probably the most important thing, the amygdala does not know if the events that you're experiencing are real or not. The amygdala does not know if the events that you're experiencing are real or not. All it knows is to respond to what's happening, okay? So this is a picture of the amygdala. It's like a little teeny organ right in the midbrain, right about there, and it's directly connected to your sympathetic nervous system, okay? So when we experience a trauma or fear in our younger years, the brain's job, the amygdala's job, is one-fold, and that is to remember it. So the amygdala sounds an alarm when it's exposed to it again, and it tells the body to go into sympathetic overdrive or fight or flight, because that is its job, is to tell the body to go into fight or flight or hyper alert mechanism. The brain is not isn't busy preparing you to think about what's going on. So it's not about thinking about the dog or the bear. It's just literally getting your body into fight or flight. Just get it into go. Okay. But the thing, so see up in red, it says everyone has it. What I want you to hear again, everyone has this. When you read about the amygdala, you hear about it commonly with trauma, with PTSD, war survivors, Afghanistan, and so on. All of that's true. And every single client I've ever worked with in all of the worlds I've worked in, whether it be medicine, yoga, or the world I work in now of intuitive coaching, everyone, including me, has some trauma that the amygdala remembers, okay? So if you think, I had a lovely childhood, everything's fine. See what I've written, normal childhood, all was good. Your brain still holds on to something because that is the job of the amygdala, is to pick something out there that it's going to hold on to. So whether the trauma be, I'm not good enough, or whether the trauma be that the world isn't safe, even though it looks safe, whatever the trauma is, the amygdala remembers it, and that's its job. So this can show up in many ways. Remember, it's the sympathetic overdrive. High blood pressure, depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue, concussion, like you name it, that's how it shows up. Remember what I put in brackets? 95% plus of illnesses are from what? From stress. And the stimulus that causes the amygdala to fight or flight, remember I said it to you guys a few minutes ago, it does not have to actually be real, but our brain can be interpreting it that way. So it might not be a natural traumatic event, like you got dropped on your head or something, but a simple fear of not being good enough, right? Your dad always said, why didn't you get 100%? You only got 96. Or why aren't you as good as your sister or brother? That your brain remembers as trauma, if you want to call it. In my millennial clients, they have FOMO, fear of missing out. How many of you guys live on your social media account? You know, and when you ask people, you just put the phone down. You don't need social media. They actually have studied it to show that they have like reactions to their body, their stress response when they try to go off of it. So FOMO, fear of missing out, is what their amygdala is stored with, amongst others. And the brain structure, the amygdala brain structure, when the immediate threat subsides, like so go away, then the parasympathetic kicks in, okay, and it gets to restore. The only problem is that the stress hormones keep going for the majority of people, okay? So very rarely do we actually shift back into parasympathetic to get adequate restore, because most people just keep firing, okay? But the best news ever is that this can be reversed. The amygdala can learn to relax again. The hippocampus can restore memory consolidation for whoever asked about concussion. The nervous system can be reversed. Everything can be reversed. Isn't that good? The keys to healing, and this is what Mark was talking about a few minutes ago. The keys to rewiring the amygdala, present moment awareness. Rewiring the brain, meditation, and mindfulness. Those are the keys of healing. Smiley face. There's something else here. Okay, to heal, I'm just gonna see if I'm gonna do that. I'm probably gonna do this now. No, I'm just gonna go back. Let me just check in with you guys because there's more slides, but I'm gonna take a break from this for a second. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, I taught you meditation. Yay. How does that sound? Like, how are you guys doing right now? We're about 30 minutes into this. How are you guys doing with what we've talked about so far? Neuroplasticity, basic overview, quantum physics, an overview, and the amygdala. How does that sound to you guys? Sounds good? Why don't we go back into parasympathetic as much? Great question, Victoria. Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. There's more slides, guys. We're not done yet. I just want to take a break for a sec from the science stuff for a sec. So one of the reasons we don't go back, Victoria, into parasympathetic right away is because our brain is still perceiving that it's there, okay? So let's just use the example of FOMO, fear of missing out. So I don't have my phone in front of me, but I think I left it downstairs on purpose. So fear of missing out. So I'm spending an hour with you guys. I actually don't suffer from FOMO, like fear of missing out. But if I did, I'd be up here, my phone would be downstairs, okay? And if I felt like I was missing out and I was afraid, my brain would still be perceiving it, even though I'm directing energy this way, if I didn't know how to focus my energy, Victoria. So most of us don't know how to direct our energy. So what happens is part of our brain is still perceiving I'm not good enough or fear of missing out. Let me give you a couple other examples. The I'm not good enough is probably the most common thing I see that the amygdala is trained into. And if you're thinking you're not good enough, say at your job, Chances are you think you're not good enough in your relationship. Chances are you think you're not good enough because you're overweight. Think you're not good enough because you're not good at exercising. And it can be so, for lack of a better word, unconscious, you don't even know it, that your brain doesn't get a break from that thought. And so if your brain doesn't get a break from that thought, Victoria, it doesn't get a chance to go into parasympathetic to relax. Got it? Because the fears that in our Western world, the fears that our brain is trapped into with trauma is always these things like a lot of us grew up in normal homes, normal families, and I put that in quotes, normal homes, normal families. A lot of us didn't grow up in like, and I don't mean to make, I'm sure some of you did, but a lot of us grew up in like lower to middle class. Like a lot of us didn't grow up in abject poverty. A lot of us had those things. So why is it that our brain is still signaled with some trauma? Is simply because there's still a story. But in our Western world, Victoria, that story is always something like, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make enough money. How do I succeed? And those things are chronic, right? They're there all the time. So our brain never gets a break to go into parasympathetic. Okay, great. Easy to understand. Fascinating, fascinating. So we learn and now know intellectually, but why do we self-sabotage? Let's go there. Elaine wrote that. So Elaine, part of why we self-sabotage, great question. So remember you saw the picture of the brain and the amygdala was in the middle? When our amygdala is firing, you and I are hiking in the woods, we see a bear. When the amygdala is firing, guess what is not working? Our thinking brain. I talked about that. The brain is not consciously thinking. So our prefrontal cortex that directs conscious thinking cannot actually do anything in the brain because we're so much in fight or flight, okay? So in a few minutes, we'll talk about like how you actually heal this, whether you use, because they're all linked. Quantum physics, neuroplasticity, and the amygdala training, they're all linked, okay? And so we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So the reason we self-sabotage is we know it, but you cannot just use the conscious mind to heal. The conscious mind, essentially, no offense, is useless, completely useless when it comes to healing this because the amygdala or the midbrain is holding on to it. So I hope that makes sense. And so intellectual does not work. So let's just say you're in the woods and we see a bear, let's just say, and our body goes into sympathetic overdrive. And then we're out later on and we see something that we think is a bear. One or both of us, our bodies would still respond. And no matter how much we said out loud, that's not a bear, that's not a bear, that's not a bear, our bodies would still be doing this because that's the job of it. So the conscious mind cannot intellectually override that amygdala, or in the case of the self-sabotage. Vienne writes, we are conditioned to be, I'm not good enough, based on the existing educational system to be part of status quo. We are taught to think, but to follow. Great point. I mean, that's a great point. And, I'm just going to check on what I want to say about that one. It's a great point. Even without the existing educational system, my thought would be we probably might still have it because even there's the educational system and then we have the entertainment world and then we've got newspapers. So even if you didn't go to the current educational system, you might still have the I'm not good enough based on just the way, we are as humans. So I respect and honor what you've written. And I think that there's real validation to that. But I think even if you took yourself outside the educational system, you might still have that because it's part of the experience of being a human, which I'll talk about in one sec when I answer this next question. Okay, we have learned all the earlier on from birth to age of 7, and it now becomes part of my software. So how do okay, we're going to talk about it in one sec, Chris. So I'm going to just finish the answer for Vienne, and then I'll come back. I'm looking for a pen. Hold on a sec, guys. No pen. Okay, so it's funny because it's really hilarious to have a pen. So Vienne, the thing is, everything is opposites in our society. So I teach this a ton, which is why I'm laughing that I don't have a pen. So everything is opposites. So on one end of this, every topic on the human realm is opposites. Having it and not having it. Having abundance, having no money. Being happy, being sad. Everything is opposites. You cannot be on the human earth realm without any topic being opposites. So my water happens to be cold. It could be hot. I happen to have water. I could have no water. I want you to see how there's opposites. So no matter what, no matter if it's the educational system or something else, the good enough on the other end of the skit is the I'm not good enough. So we're always going to have the opposites. Okay, perfect. You're going to send me a box of pens. Thank you, hon. Got like 4 over there. You're so sweet. Okay, so let's jump to Chris's question about how do I reprogram the program? We're going to go there right now. Awesome question, Chris. It's like you're taking me right back to the slides. Anything else before I jump back to the slides? Hand up. No, we're good. Cool. Awesome. Let me go back to the slides, and then we'll come back. You're so cute, Marianne. You make me laugh. Okay, share screen. PowerPoint. I think I'm getting better at this. There we go. Okay, so to heal. Okay, let's talk about this. One of the keys to the changing, whether you do quantum physics or they're all linked. All the healings to quantum physics, neuroplasticity, all of it's linked. The key is to train the mind. And what studies have shown us is that meditation and mindfulness training is the key to rebuild neural pathways. They did a study on Buddhist monks and regular people studying their gamma waves in their brain. And obviously Buddhist monks who have meditated for 20 plus years, they've already got very strong gamma waves in their brain. And then they actually discovered in this study that they could have regular folks meditating, doing mindfulness, increase their gamma wave, sorry, I didn't mean to change the slide, increase their gamma wave productivity. But as soon as the regular people stopped meditating and doing mindfulness, their gamma wave radiation dropped, okay? But the meditators, the Buddhist monks who've been doing it for 20 years, theirs kept up. So it's literally just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it to keep it up, okay? So to go back to Chris, to the question that I got asked, I think it was Chris. So in order to heal this, there's 2 parts. Think of it as inner work and outer work. Outer work, we got that one down, guys. This one is easy. Exercise, we've heard that 1,000 times. Eat well, got that down. Lifestyle, don't smoke, don't drink too much, blah, blah, blah. We know that one. Schedule management, don't work 18 hours a day. You know, be good to yourself, take breaks, get outside. Guys, outer care, oh my God, you guys can do this in your sleep, all of you. Self-care, go see massage, acupuncture, osteopath, go do that good stuff. That stuff rocks, but that's outer work, okay? That's outer, and that stuff is awesome, awesome, awesome. What's the inner work? The inner work, now that's the work. The inner, see, what a lot of my clients say to me is, Divi, I can do outer work until I'm blue in the face. It's the inner work that, in my experience, is not the harder, but it takes more practice and diligence. So the inner work. Notice your thoughts and your emotional triggers. This is what I was teaching last night. So we have a thought, and then we have an emotional trigger. That axis between our thoughts and emotional triggers is set. And when I get my videos back, I'll show you guys what I mean in a second. And when we realize that we're triggering an emotional response, realize we don't have to trigger that way. And we can then start to change the thought and emotional response. And then when we start to do that, that's when we actually step into zero field. And that's when we start to create new neural pathways, when you stop responding in the same way you do all the time. And the work I teach is all inner work. It's all inner work, how to tap into energy fields, how to heal, how to get yourself focused, how to get your electromagnetic vibration going, how to live an inspired life. I'm going to come back to these slides in a few minutes, how to create neural pathways. That's everything I teach. I'm going to stop sharing in a minute because I want to come back and show you guys something here with my hands. Okay, so I want to go back to Chris's question. Here's the thought and the event, and here's the emotional response. Okay, and I teach this so many times. I'm sure some of you have heard this before. By the time you're 8, 12, 13, like you were writing Chris 7 in your note, this axis is very well determined. Thought, event, emotional response. Thought, event, emotional response. And the older you get, the less of a gap that occurs. The person could cut you off from the traffic, and before they even cut you off, you've said the F-U-C-K word, right? It's like, no gap. The biggest thing you can give yourself is the gap between thought and event and emotional response, okay? Because when you have a gap, then over time, you get to choose this emotional response. And this gap, guess what happens then? Then you're stepping into 0 point field. That's what you're doing. You're stepping into zero field. And that's where you're stepping into this vibrational space that I talked about with quantum, like the field, the unified field. That's where you get the choice. Now, that does not mean, Chris, or anyone else who's asking this question, that you're not going to respond from fear and anger and worry like you did for 20, 30, 40 years. That's in you. But if you learn different techniques and tools, which I'll get to in a few minutes, then you can start to rewire these tools and techniques so that, you can rewire this fear and anger, understand its origin, and learn how to heal and shift it. And until you do that, you'll keep responding in that knee-jerk way. So I just want to check in if that answers your question, Chris, and check in where you guys are at before I jump back to the slides and kind of answer some of the questions. Let me know how you guys are doing and just check in before I go back to slides and answer some questions here. Any questions or we're good? Okay, let me actually pause from the slides for a quick second and unmute a few of you guys if you're open to that, because I want to address some of the questions that came in earlier about concussions, fibromyalgia, and all that stuff, if that's cool. Is that cool with you guys? Cool? Okay, good. Okay, we'll just say, yeah, that's cool. You guys are saying, yeah, that's cool energetically. Okay, so let us see here. So some of the questions that came in at the beginning were about concussion and fibromyalgia, thyroid, adrenals, immune system, hormones, asthma, okay, healing liver, okay. All right, limbic system, Lyme, okay. Okay, so I'm going to answer a few of these generally, and then if anyone wants kind of more individually, put your hand up. Just remembering there's a podcast audio part, so other people might listen to this. I'm sure you guys are cool with that. So, especially to the person who typed in Lyme, stroke, and all those things, one thing I say a lot is do your best to use the diagnosis for one reason. The diagnosis can tell you just some basic points, but as best as you can, this is the hardest part. If this was the diagnosis, like my mouse, I know those of you who are listening won't be able to see it, but if this was my mouse, this was the diagnosis, I'd lose it. I'd forget what the label was, because the label does not serve you, because your amygdala is going to remember it. Every time you say the word Lyme, every time you say stroke, it's like your body goes, and immediately their body and brain are so smart. So a diagnosis is helpful from a medical perspective, okay? But the brain automatically remembers it. Do you remember we talked about energy fields earlier? We talked about the quantum field, the energy field, Taggart's pictures. If I tell my liver, your dysfunction, guess what my liver is going to do faster than I even said it? It's going to create dysfunction. Got it? When I was really sick about 20 years ago, which is about 20, 25 years ago is when my healing journey started. I was 28. I'm 40-something now, so about 21 years ago. I actually did not investigate why I had what I had. And if I had, I probably would have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I would have been diagnosed with some sort of autoimmune condition. And I did not go there on purpose because I knew what my brain would make it mean, even though I did not understand. I didn't know metaphysics at the time. I didn't know this work at the time. But I knew that if I labeled it, that I'd be stuck in a box. So if you have a label, like a mouse, and I can feel the resistance and I respect it, guys, my first suggestion is lose it. Lose the name. Forget the name as best as you can. Because the name actually, for your own healing, doesn't serve you because your body remembers that. And it just goes, how does that feel for you guys? Just type in or let me know. How does that feel? Good? Bad? Good? Bad? Good? Okay, got a thumb up. I got one or two thumbs up. Cool. And like I said, if you want to be unmuted, just unmute yourself. We're a very friendly group. Second thing I might say, great. So important. It's so important. Awesome. If you want to label your symptoms, I would label it as, instead of the word pain, I would actually start to reuse your words. Your words are super important. Because if your words are coming out like my hip is always hurting, what I was saying in my class last night, I was teaching, I said my right hip was hurting lately because my mom's been sick. And so I say to myself now, it's not because I picked up my purse wrong. It's not because I did something wrong at yoga. I know all that. But I say, this is just an emotion of fight or flight or fear, of sadness and worry and despair that's stuck in my hip. Period. That's it. See how much easier that is to amend that than to think that my hip hurt. My hip will never get better, or that there's fasciitis or tendinitis or bursitis. If I use those words in my hip, guess what? There's nothing I can do. If I say, however, that I have an emotion regarding someone in my life that I love dearly, then that's what's causing my hip. So I'll repeat it for you, Barb. If I went and saw a doctor, and I love doctors, I am one of those, so no offense. When I saw a doctor, they would tell me I have a bursitis in my hip right now. Okay? Cool. Great diagnosis. Bursitis, tendinitis, fasciitis, call it whatever you want. That's what they would say. So if I tell my brain all the time, Barb, that I have fasciitis, bursitis on my hip, then it feels like my hip I have no control over. But instead what I say, Barb, is I say, I'm going through an emotional journey because my mom has been sick lately. And I'm validly, afraid, upset about her. So those emotions are now producing some tension in my hip. So as I work through my emotions, my hip releases, and it always does. If I cry, if I get sad, if I think of how much I love my mom, my hip releases like that. But if I'm always thinking I've got a bursitis in my hip, guess what's going to happen? It's always going to stay painful. Do you see how it is? It's such a simple concept, but that's why I spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about why our medical model is the way it is. Okay? Right prior to teaching this, I had a quick coffee with another physician who's moved here from the UK, who's interested in the work I do, who doesn't want to return to medicine. We were talking about why. She said because how she described it was medicine is like a two-dimensional approach to healthcare. And really what she's discovered, she does a lot of other stuff, HeartMath, Psyche, and different stuff. She said, really healing or really medicine is a 3, 4, 5-dimensional approach, right? So if you want to stay in a 2-dimensional approach, you'll have a label, but the label will always keep you flat. But our body is 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional. Do you see how it works? And to heal it, remember those pictures we saw, the quantum physics pictures of the energy bodies? Tapping into that field, which has no words. I want to say that again. That field has no words. So I want to jump to the concussion, and then I'll come back, because a couple of you guys wrote in concussion. So a concussion is just an energy. All of these physical things that our body produces are just energies. So concussion is like, something is going on in my life, and I did that quite funny, where your head stops and starts, like, and so I need to address the issue in my life, that stop and start. That's what I need to address. The physical thing of what's going on in my head and the symptoms of the concussion are just a reminder of some emotions that I'm stuck on that are start and stop. So whoever typed in concussion, let me know if that lands. And it's really about rewiring and repeating how we say this stuff. I'm going to jump to hormones. So I'm jumping to some of the stuff you guys talked about before I go to slides. Any questions so far? We're good? Cool. Okay. So let's go to hormones. Hormones are a really common one for us to get looped up about, especially us women. Oh my God, did I get looped? Oh my God. If you look at the science behind hormones and how we produce LH, FSH, estrogen, and progesterone, if you look at the science on how the brain works with it, if you look at the science, the hormonal axis is directly connected to one thing, only one, and that's the cortisol level. What's the cortisol level? Our stress level. Guys, got it? And the more you go looking for what's wrong with your hormones, the more, I keep seeing this picture, think of my arm. Okay, so you see my arm here? My fingertips is the end, my shoulder joint is proximal. So the hormones are the end result of what's happening up here. If you just look at the hormones, you're looking at only the end result of what's proximal. What's proximal is the cortisol, the stress levels. And the thing is, no one wants to look at that because that's the inner work, which I'll get back to in a second. It's like, well, how do I deal with my stress level? And I'm going to jump to that right now, and I'll come back to this question on hormones in a second. There is a part of you, and it's going to sound really weird. There is a part of you that is divine entity of source, of who you are in your divine, in your spirit, in that energy, that is not stressed. Every time I go to do a TV thing, every time I get on a webinar, like webinars like this get me a little anxious, okay? Especially when I'm teaching a new topic, like this is a new topic for me. And I said to my husband son about half an hour ago, I'm nervous. And my son always says, Mom, why are you nervous? You've done this 1,000 times. And I said, it's a new topic, sweetie. He's like, nothing's new for you. And so I meditated before with his grunge music on, and I just connected with my divine. And I know that my divine is not stressed. My divine has this down. As I connected to my divine, my hip released. As soon as I did that, it's gone. And as I connected to my divine, the divine knows the answers. So there is a part of each and every one of you that is not stressed. So yes, Chris, the higher self, the divine, the truth of who we are. Once we connect to that, then we're connecting to the source of our cortisol. Okay? That part of your divine, when you connect there, then you've stepped into zero field. That's where you've connected, where everything is one big zero field. Anything is possible. In the divine, everything can manifest like that. Instant manifestation is in the world of the higher self, the divine. So as you train your mind to look at the world, I keep pointing to my arm, with less cortisol, less stress, see, your hormones are the end result of the issues in your relationship with your partner, the end result of the issues in relationship with your kids, your work, your life, and your issues with yourself, okay? I can give you countless examples after examples after examples of clients who come in to see me with hormonal issues, and once they start to understand it's their relationship with themselves and they change that, then the hormones always change. As a physician, I used to always be amazed, and it was before I got into this work. I would meet women who literally would go to sleep one day, and they would wake up the next day, and they would have been done their menopause. It's just like, go to bed, wake up the next day, menopause done. And then I would meet other women who literally would spend 5, 10, 12 years in perimenopausal symptoms. At the time, just as an aside, at the time my office was in Metrotown Mall, which if you're from the Greater Vancouver area, is an area in Vancouver. And at the time, just like now, there was a very high Asian population who was part of my practice at the time. And what I just observed, because it was way before I got into this work, way before, this was just my observation. I'm not saying it was right or wrong, it was just my observation as a physician. The women who did not struggle at all with menopause were the wealthier women who were 50, 55. These women typically didn't work. They had a lot of money. They would come to the mall at 10 o'clock in the morning and play mahjong. I think that's what it's called. Can't remember what they used to play. And they would walk around the mall for an hour or two. They didn't have to work. They would, sit and have tea, and that was their day. And my woman that, again, this was just observational. I did not study this, but just, there are scientific studies that show this too. Then the women that had really stressful jobs and were struggling to make ends meet, they had menopause like this. You guys get it? And that was just my observation as a 26-year-old physician, okay? But I thought to myself, there must be a reason that this was happening, right? And so I just bring you that just to kind of give you an idea that maybe the hormones are connected to something more proximal, in this case, the cortisol level. So let's jump to the concussion. Like Amy Cuddy, fake it till you become it. Who's Amy Cuddy? I'm so not, I don't know who Amy Cuddy is. Okay, but fake it till you become it. Okay. Okay, let's keep going here. Regarding concussion or some kind of abrupt physical damage, surgical site or broken leg, the physical damage is not necessarily caused by energetic disharmony, but I believe what you are implying is that you can heal the site of energetic emotional healing. So yes, okay, so let's talk about that. So Victoria, if the area of injury that the person is dealing with is, say, from a trauma, a surgery, a car accident, a fall, the theory in my world is that that fall or that stroke or that injury or that whatever, that surgical site, that physical thing that occurred is a result of an energy that was going on prior. And so if we just look at the surgical site or we just look at the trauma falling off a bridge or something, then we're not looking at the energy that caused it. So we can heal the energy that caused it, right? Because it's just energy. And then we can heal this. And if you look at those pictures of the quantum healing and you look at the light body, and if you understand light body, it's like, of course it can be healed because it is just energy. But what is the energy that's causing it was kind of what Chris's message earlier was about kind of trauma from childhood. And remembering that energy that created, say, a fall or the energy that created a need for surgery, we're looking at the energy behind that in order to heal it. So I hope that helps, Victoria. Let me know if that helps or not. And the physical damage, it's really important for us to realize or understand that the body can heal and everything that we perceive as damage can shift. And it's almost like our brain has to be trained that way to think that that's possible. Because if we don't think that's possible, then it's not going to be possible. If we think fibromyalgia, Crystal, can heal, it can heal. If we think chronic back pain can heal, it can heal. But if we think we're stuck with it forever, we're stuck with it. It's never a silly question. But what about athletes, football players, risk of concussions? Oh, and you asked such good questions. I'm going to make and I'm not making this joke. Never mind. That was from me, not from the guys. Great question. Really great question. Here's my answer to it. Things like concussion. Here's the outside skull. I guess I have a lot of concussion questions, which is great. Outside skull, and the brain just moves inside. There's so much about belief systems. Thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become reality. Again, say it again. Thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become reality. Okay? The belief is that once you have a concussion, you're going to have it forever. That is actually the belief that we have. And what if the brain can heal just as quickly and just as smoothly as a cut on your arm? So first thing is I'd look at the beliefs. And the second thing is some people don't actually continue to use their brain. Remember I did that whole thing on synapses. The older we get, the less we smell the flowers. Remember we talked about that? So in order to heal from concussions, we have to be willing to build new nerve cells. So personally, I do believe that they can heal. But I think if the belief is so strong that you're hooped, then I think that's going to lead the way. I think I've told some of you guys the story. It's really take it out really quickly. When I was 25, 26, everything happened when I was 20-something. I was learning to ski in Barrie, Ontario. And I was doing the good old snowplow across the mountain. Long story short, before helmets. Got whacked, hit, don't remember anything for 2 days. Woke up 2 days later in my ex-mother-in-law's apartment. She was just my boyfriend's mother at the time. And I was airbacked out on a spinal board. No recollection of anything. Went and saw a neurologist on the Monday or Tuesday after, because I was a medical student at the time. Saw a neurologist right away going, what do I do? My MRI or CAT scan was fine. He's like, just go back to work. You'll be fine, because the belief system around concussions 20 years ago was, it'll get better. Just go back to your life. I had to take a few days or a few weeks off. I had to drop my hours a bit. But he just planted this belief in my head that the brain could shift like that. I have zero recollection of 2 days of my life. Okay. So it was like as severe of a concussion as you can get nowadays. But see, the belief back then was it can heal, because we didn't know enough. We didn't have a different belief then. So that's where I come from on that. Okay, Amy Cuddy wrote a book called Presence, oh, cool, I didn't know that. There you go. Thanks, Lorraine, didn't know that. Okay, cool. There is a study that concussions cause dementia later in life. Okay, and so let's talk a bit about dementia. So all medical things are energy, including dementia. Say it again. All physical things are energy, including dementia. So dementia is a way of our brain getting a break from the world. Like, give me a break, but I'm not ready to die yet. There are so many people who are afraid to die. And that's okay. It's not known. We don't really know. None of us have been there, right? So in my world, dementia is basically the brain shutting down, saying, I'm done, but I still want to be here in a physical body. So in my world, dementia is something that there have been some studies on meditation, mindfulness, and actually yoga to decrease dementia risks and actually reverse early dementia, because when there was a study in University of Bangalore from 1970 something, I was doing a study on it when I was a resident here, or a physician here in Vancouver. There was a study that I remember reading. If you get the head below the heart, not a headstand, but just head below the heart like that, that in early dementia patients, that you actually slowed it down. They did it in Bangalore, I think, in India, on like thousands of people. So there are a lot of stuff out there. Oh, you guys have a great question. Don't apologize. Parkinson's. Parkinson's is a good one. Metaphysically, again, we're going metaphysically, energetically. We'll watch the slides in a little while. But so when you think of a health condition and you think of the energy behind it, just think of what happens. So remember, dementia, memory shutting down. Okay, so shut down. Don't remember things. Okay? I go off in my own private world. Parkinson's is like a rigidity. Patients with Parkinson's typically tend to be rigid in their life. And it's a way of like not wanting to let go and like hyper fight or flight. So their brain, the amygdala is usually implanted in can't let go. Oh my God, what do I gotta do? And I've worked with Parkinson's clients before. That's typically their emotion. So it's shifting that emotion. Remember, a thought and emotional realm, making that gap, healing that amygdala to unwire the Parkinson's. So that's my answer to that. Allergies. Great question. You guys have a ton of good questions. Allergies. Allergies is typically the body fighting itself, so it's an autoimmune thing. So what is it that we're not happy about ourselves that's what's caused allergies? I had wicked allergies, Crystal, about 20-something years ago, and and again, it's cortisol, okay? And it's usually those thought processes in our brain that are, I'm not good enough, what's wrong with me, how am I going to get better? When's life going to get better? Where's the money going to come from? And I get, like, the list goes on and on and on. So when we get, and what am I going to do? Oh my God, that conversation, Crystal, is then produces antibodies in the body because we're fighting ourselves, that creates allergies. And that can be unwired. I have helped so many people with allergies, including myself, simply by rewiring the brain. And it's crazy when you think that these things can be rewired, but it can. It's exciting. Any other questions before I jump back to the slides? You guys are full of great questions today. Any other questions, or how do you guys feel? We're good? Cool. Anyone want to be unmuted, or we're good? Hand up, we're good. Okay, cool. None of you guys get to be coached today. Okay, no more questions typed in. I'll give you guys 20 seconds before I switch screens. Is there anything around chanting and signs? There is, Carmen. I don't have it in these slides, but there is studies on chanting. Yes, there are studies. If you Google it, I don't have any off the top of my head, but there are studies on chanting and what it does to the brain, so there are. Chris had a question above. Oh, did I miss a question? Sorry. A question. Okay, I'll grab Chris. Is it also because we're in lower chakra root? What about Alexander's disease? Oh gosh, okay. If we're all connected within the field. Oh, you guys are great, so great. Okay, let's slow down. Chanting my yoga class brings me to the present moment. Awesome, okay. If we're all connected in the field, can we heal others with our intentions? 100%, Chris, yes. Yes, we can. The only thing, Chris, that I would say, and thank you, Madeline, for retyping that, we can only heal or help another through the common field if the other person wants it. And the person has to want to be open to it. And the other person also doesn't want to fire from their amygdala to cause, because if their fight or flight's always firing, then they can't receive that. So the person who wants to be healed has to be in an open place of healing and love in order to receive that. So yes, that's why with the field, great question, Chris, with the field, that's why you get emails and people saying, can you send love to my loved one? It's because there's a well-known thought that in the field, if I'm sending love to Lorraine and we're all sending love to Lorraine, then Lorraine gets love, and that heals things. May, do you remind me what Alexander's disease is? I think it's a neurological condition, but can you just type it in so I can remember? I can't remember. Okay, and it is because we're in lower chakra. So is it because we're in our lower chakra? What do you mean, Chris, by that? Is it because we're in a lower chakra? I think that's like half of a question. So I'm wondering what the other half of the question is. Is it because we're in a lower chakra? Okay, so I'll wait till you type that in. Okay, like ALS and MS. So that's what I thought it was. Okay, so what I would look at with things like Alexander's, which I think is a genetic condition, I would look at the fight or flight. And when you look at the rest of my slides, it might help, mate, but it's the fight or flight. But it's looking at the amygdala, but it's also looking at the neuroscience, that if we believe that we can rewire this, the biggest thing I keep feeling in your energy is the belief. Can I really do this? Is it really possible? And a lot of people, and this isn't directed to you, May, specifically, but it's directed to everybody in the class. A lot of people are like, excuse me, I'm just going to take this rubber band. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this one yoga class with Lorraine. I'm going to do one meditation class with Divi. I'm going to meditate 3 times for 4 weeks. Why am I better? Drop it. You get it? I love Mark's laugh. But the thing with this rubber band, when you start to recreate neural fibers, and in the slides I'll show you, this has to take predominance. And essentially what I say for every condition, remember I said, put the mouse away, forget you even have it. The hardest thing when you're working with a condition like, say, MS or ALS, because I have many clients with MS, is the hardest part is your body follows you with you. You got to lug the body with you. So every time you look or feel, it's with you. But you've got to do this rubber band, do these techniques, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, we'll get into in a few minutes, regularly without caring what your body's doing. That's the hardest part. I'm not going to lie to you guys. You got to do the emotional work without concern as to what the body's doing, without tracking, is my arm getting better? Is my leg getting better? You've got to do the work for only one reason, for making the rest of your life better. And when the rest of your life gets better, then it trickles over into what that condition does. All right, just make sure there's nothing else before I go back to the slides. Anything else, anyone? Okay. Yeah, essentially, Betty, you're right. It's ignoring your symptoms, which again, for lack of a better word, it's the hardest part. I'm never going to lie about that. It's the hardest part. It is and I won't lie to anyone about that. But you hit it right in the head. You've got to try to ignore them. You've got to have a different definition. My body is just talking to me. My body's just giving me cues. My body's just giving me messages. Don't need a name for it. I think we're discussing here energy, and all energy encompasses different frequencies, which can be visible and invisible, also based on the vibration. Since we're all energy beings, we can be re-energized and rewired to our true energy. Exactly. That's exactly it. Exactly. Do not be attached to the outcome. Exactly, Mark. That's exactly You just nailed it. You guys are doing this for me. I got it easy. Anything else, anyone? We're good? I'm going to jump back to the slides and then come back to you guys. Give it like 20 seconds again. And when we die, our spiritual being has enough playtime. That's the thought. Very Buddhist. Is that why you only say the C word, not cancer? Yeah, that is exactly why I say the C word. Because people get afraid of the word cancer. That's why I don't use it. There's nothing wrong with cancer. Cancer is just my cells has changed, but people don't hear it that way. Cancer, people hear cancer, they think death sentence. That's what people think. So I just say the C word. It's like, okay. But it's nothing to be scared of because we're all having a physical experience. That's all we're having. Okay. Anything else before we jump back to the slides? I'll come back to you guys in a second, but again, I just want to make sure I don't cut anyone off. We're good, good, good. Okay, cool. Let us go back to the slides, and I'll come back here in a second. All right, where's the share screen? Okay. Okay. We're almost done. Don't worry, guys. So the inner work. How to tap into your energy field, how to get healthy and healed and well. How do you collect within, and so this is what I teach, guys, is how to do all this stuff. How to heal, how to create neuropathways. This is what I teach. Just a second. It takes a second to wake up for it to turn. But this is essentially the work I teach. So I'm inviting you to a couple things. I'll give you a couple invitations if you want to take this further. One, I teach a Wednesday night class that I've now renamed called Hump Day Consciousness. Marianne, a couple of you guys were in it last night. Last night with me. The work, as I was just showing you with my rubber band, you can't just do it once. It takes regular, consistent focus and relearning. And so there's different techniques I use. These are just a sample of some of the techniques I use. Energetic, metaphysical, meditation, mindfulness. I use some cognitive behavioral therapy. I use a ton of intuition. It's my favorite. I teach a lot about universal laws. When you understand universal laws, oh my God, do you understand the world? And it's all designed to do one thing. It's designed to do one thing, is to fill your toolbox. Because your brain follows you around, your inner work follows you around. And the bigger your toolbox, the easier it gets. With regular practice, anything can happen. I just listed a bunch of conditions I've worked with. I ran out of space. I was going to do another slide. I didn't bother. But yeah, I've helped people with chronic pain, depression, anxiety. I'll just say it quickly. Depression, anxiety, PTSD, chronic fatigue, vertigo, reflux, ulcers, food insensitivities, anorexia, bulimia. Yes, I've worked with cancer patients, heart disease, much, much more. I mean, I don't think of them as an illness. That's what I do. I don't think of it as a disease. And I work with the energy of the client. That's all I do. But the illness, you guys can recognize the names. To me, they're just labels. They're nothing else. So Wednesdays are online classes. They're an hour and a half from 5:30 to 7 o'clock PST. You keep the videos forever. You learn, you teach, you grow, you heal. And the ultimate question is, are you worth it? Like, do you really deserve it? And the nice thing about the Wednesday night classes is that you can do it as a drop-in, a 1 month or a 3 month. But please remember, it takes a minimum of 21 days to build a new habit. And the more you practice, the longer it lasts. And that's kind of the link to it. It's on my mbsmedicine.com webpage. And if you click on courses, Hump Day Happiness, you'll find it. And then the other thing that I'm in and Sharon, a couple of you guys are enrolled in, is I also do a 1-year program, a coaching program for people who want to do what I do. Okay, it's a year program, very much on purpose. But during the year, you're actually learning how to heal yourself. You're learning all the techniques I teach. You apply to you, and then you learn how to help others. The next enrollment's in September. This work is only about one thing, and this big heart. It's only about love. It's only about love, and it's only about love. Because the more we love, the more we are who we are. That the truth of your being is the divine consciousness. The truth of who you are is that place of spirit. The truth of who you are is love. And when you step into that place, that's when everything changes, everything heals. Oh, and Sharon, that's so sweet. Sharon's taking the 1-year course, and she wrote, it's an amazing course. It's transformational. Thank you, honey. That's the 1-year course. So our next enrollment for that is September of this year. So if you're thinking about it, just fire me an email, and you could do the Wednesdays before if you want. But going back to this is all about love. Nothing in your life has to be sick. Nothing, nothing, nothing. All you have to do is find the one thing, and everything starts to shift. See, everything shifts onto the right axis. Exactly. But there's nothing in your life and in your body that you have to live with that is not well. When you saw the quantum field things, you saw it. We can all do it. I always say to everyone, If I can heal, you can heal. If you guys don't know my story, really quickly, chronic pain, chronic allergies, food insensitivities, gluten insensitivity, blah, 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 blah. Like, list goes on and on and on. Depression, anxiety, you name it, I had it. It's all gone. It's all gone. I occasionally get a bit of pain if I get sad and anxious about my mother, but it comes, right? That's life. But the more you learn to use the tools, the more you learn to shift. So I'd love it if you guys join me on Wednesdays. They're super fun. Join me for the 1-year transformational year. It'll be super fun. But don't just leave this webinar going, I got it, because this webinar wasn't meant to teach you a ton of the tools. It's meant to teach you the science. So I want to just check in if there's any other questions or comments. All of this will get, yeah, of course. Yeah, cold sore is gone. Yeah, 100%. But you got to figure out the emotional root is. You're welcome, Carmen. Behind the cold sores, the acne and all that stuff, shift that and it's gone. Let me say it in a different way for those of us who are metaphysical. Everything that's an illness is just a shadow. When you put light on the shadow, when you have the room was dark and I put the light on, what would happen? It wouldn't be dark. Put light on the shadow, it goes away. The hardest part, first, thought and emotional access. Second part, how to put an emotion into your regular life that feels better. Third part, the hardest part, identify the shadow, pull it outside you, and how do you heal it? That's the trigger work. The guides want me to say it this way, and I'm surprised I'm going to say it this way, so I'll say it this way. It's never to be done alone, because if we dance the shadow by ourselves, we become the shadow, which is why working with somebody, working with a group, and sitting in an energy of light is the key. I could write 700 books on this stuff. I might one day, but you will not learn this from a book, because the book is just knowledge up here. If you ask anyone in the class, Sharon who typed that in, Lorraine, some of you guys who study with you, all the work I do is chin down. There's no point in getting into your brain. Your brain, no offense guys, the brain is useless here. It's great for grade 3 science and grade 11 math, but the brain cannot be used to heal. So the reason the guides want me to say this cannot be done alone is because you cannot access your amygdala, your chin down on your own. This is why we're not individual beings alone on the planet. This is why we're together. This is why we are a group. So true. It's all feeling. It is all feeling, Sharon. That's exactly it. It is all feeling. So I want to check in. Any other comments or questions before we wrap up, or how are you guys doing? And I'll send you the recording too. Any comments or questions? Or did I hit everybody's health issues at the beginning? Are we good? I'll give you like 20, 30 seconds to make sure I didn't leave anything out. Thank you, Divi. Big love. Awesome. Louise Hay's book. Yeah, Louise Hay's stuff is awesome. The only thing about the Louise Hay stuff, again, it's just the book. It's up here. Got it? I read Louise Hay's stuff inside and out for my acne, my back pain. It's up here. It's not here. And the affirmation, great as they are, thank you, Louise, for being on the planet and doing the work she did. It did not, at least for me, it didn't hit all the deep emotional chords, because it's such a general statement for acne or such a general statement for cold sores that it didn't apply to me. I needed more chin down. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Melanie. You're welcome, Victoria. Thank you very much. It's very enlightening. I agree with you that you cannot face or conquer your own shadow. Yeah, exactly. You need love and light and others to help you. Yes, exactly. We need light of others. Awesome. Fabulous as always. You're welcome, Marianne. Anything else, guys? You guys are cool? All right, awesome, guys. I love you guys so much. So my workshop, we'll get into that in a second. Thank you. So what I've decided to do, Barb, is I'm holding off on the 14th. I'm just focusing on the Wednesdays. I haven't announced it yet. I'm holding off on the 14th time just because the regular I'm finding is much more helpful. You're welcome, Helene. No problem. So yeah, the 14th I put off. I'm just doing the Wednesdays now. You're welcome, May. Cool, guys. Awesome. Love you guys so much. Have the best night ever. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. I will see you guys on Wednesday. Ciao, guys. And good morning there. Love that.